10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to Howey the podcast from Roker Park. And today we speak to someone who lived the dream that most of us grew up wanting to do. He might have went the long way round rather than just coming through the ranks, but he did end up playing for Sunderland and played an important part in a pivotal time for the club. He went on to play for the likes of Burnley and Northampton, and in more recent times we hear his voice as co-commentator on the lads now and again. And in the words he picked for his own book, he was massively violent and decidedly average. It is, of course, Lee Howey. Hello, Lee.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, Matt.
Yeah, just a comment. We are, on the weather this evening. We are recording on possibly the hottest day of the last few years. But to be fair, I mean, summer's good when it's on the back of a great season like that, isn't it?
Oh, fabulous! What unbelievable! I mean, after our finish to the season, and then to just pull it out the bag for the playoffs was just incredible. I don't know. I just had a feeling. Many years we've been disappointed when we go to Wembley, and I've always got that feeling that here we go again. But this time, I don't know, the thing till the end and the goals, the late goals. I just thought we'd find a way, and fair play, we did.
Mm. Well, it's funny, isn't it? That it just seems, and we were talking about this the other day on another pod, that just seems in like maybe with the start of the EFL Trophy, but just the mindset last few years of just like having a big game and saying, no, we're going to win this.
Yeah, it has changed. I think, like everything else, I mean, we look at Sheffield United, it's 100 years. I think if once you get that monkey off your back, that you've won there. I mean, be it when we did win in the Papa John's and nobody was there. Maybe that was the best thing that could have happened. But no, I've cherished, because I've obviously been down many times before and come away very, very disappointed. But the last twice has just been euphoric, and obviously the last one just topped it all.
Well, we'll circle back round, because it's been a very un-Sunderland type end to the season where we actually came out on top in those moments. But look, we couldn't kind of talk to you without talking a bit about your career while we've got a bit of a chance. But just quickly, I mean, in terms of going back, because we all know you're a Sunderland fanatic, but I guess that goes back to the mid-70s, just after the cup win.
Yeah, I mean, I was too young, obviously, to go to the cup final. I don't really remember that much of it, apart from at the time, when you get a little bit older, watching videos, VHS of the game, and any snippets of Monty's save or in Porterfield's goal. But I was 4 at the time, so it wasn't until mid-70s, maybe 74, 75, I went to my first match. I believe it was Everton, again, too young to remember, but I think it was snowing. And that was it, hooked ever since, really.
Yeah. It's funny because you just mentioned VHS there. My Ben's look at it is like, I'm weird when I say I'm taping something. Still say that, even though I haven't seen one for donkeys yet. But yeah, so who were your big heroes growing up in that kind of late 70s?
I mean, all of them. I mean, Barry Siddall was in goal. I mean, Sean Elliott, Stan Cummins. There was so many, and obviously Gary Rowell was my absolutely hero. And I remember standing on the terraces when we beat the Mags at St James's Park 4-1, and he scored a hat-trick. It was probably I couldn't believe that. I just couldn't believe that victory and how it felt. And it just cemented Gary Rowell into my mind that he was just the ultimate Sunderland player.
Yeah. Well, you were obviously kind of, I mean, was he the inspiration? I mean, was that because of Gary Rowell? Were you a striker then? Simple as that.
I don't know. When I first, I was so young, I remember going to St Cuthbert's, and I'd arrived from a different school. I arrived from St Leonard's, so the football team, again, under 8s or 9s it was then, they had a team, and I tried to get in it, and they didn't have a goalie, so I just says, can I be in goal? And then I did play in goal for them, but the back pass came, and I just flicked it up with one foot, and then on the other foot, and then caught it. And the teacher at the time went, "You're not a goalkeeper, we'll play you out." And I think at the time it was just, I ended up playing right wing, and I ended up just getting the knack of scoring goals. And eventually, again, even at nearly 6 foot when I left at 11, at the school, I was destined, I think, to be a centre forward.
Yeah. Well, it was, I don't know, even in my day, it was always the biggest lads got in the team. It was like almost by height rather than by skill. I don't know how much that's changed. But you ended up having to go down south, and you ended up Ipswich. And it's funny because probably the legacy of Bobby Robson, but Ipswich for a long time raided the northeast, didn't they?
They had a scout called John Crothers, and he did Scotland, the northwest, really Cumbria and the northeast. And he was very thorough. And he just, every half term of the holidays, he used to get a minibus and send them down. And one Easter, I was part of that. I was part of that minibus, and it was a few lads from Newcastle and Cumbria, and a couple of lads from Scotland. And then we went down and joined other people, other players from down south, and we used to always do North v South games, which was just terrific.
I bet you some good tackles going in North versus South.
Well, sometimes the ball was forgotten. Yeah. The ball was in the middle of the pitch, and it was chaos, but it was right up my street. I loved it, and I think Bobby Ferguson and the team just seen some talent there and decided to sign me on schoolboys then, and then apprenticeship.
Yeah, well, that's it. But before you could get going, you had a bad ankle injury, and then you injure your knee, and by 19, you told immediately after an operation, by the sounds of it, reading in your book, which is brilliant, by the way, if anyone hasn't read it. I was flicking through it for a long time today. There you go. People can't say that, but I am actually holding it up. But you described in there kind of the way you were treated. I mean, it's funny because everyone wants to live the dream, but is this the ruthless part of football that people don't really see?
Again, I've got a young son. Well, he's not young; he's nearly 21 now. But he was trying to go through this, and I always used to tell him he wanted to be a footballer. I was going, it's so tough. You got the elite, and obviously, again, the elite footballers, they get looked after well, they get treated well, and now the money's ridiculous. But your bread and butter footballers, and especially even now, if you go to the stadium a lot and you see the old footballers, most of them have to work. Nobody, it's brutal. It's a brutal, and unfortunately, at times as well, you have really, really good friends, and they've got your place.
Yeah.
So you're really wishing them not to play well, and so it's and if you're not in the team, you're just forgotten, and then you could, and then the manager could tell you what you thought of you. When you had hands on you, there was there was fights in dressing rooms. It was tough. It was tough, and if you weren't strong-willed and strong-minded, you did fall.
Yeah. And because you did return home, and you're on the verge of becoming a policeman. And I think actually most of the wrong-uns up here were glad you took a call from a scout at that point, who wanted lads to go across for a trial in Belgium. I mean, do you ever think about a parallel universe where you didn't actually get that call?
No, I don't know. I've just always thought I'd never, ever give up belief, even though I was told I'd never play professional football again. Even when I came home, I still never thought that would be the case. And I always believed, and everything, even the police or anything else what I'd done, I always thought was just going to be a stopgap until I did it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of ended. I mean, even though the football went quite well, it ended up with them kind of, holding your papers so you couldn't play for anyone else at the end of that. I mean, at that point, did you think someone really didn't want you to become a footballer?
I was still a young man. And again, probably the younger listeners won't know, because it was called the Bossman. That's what Seven Bossman did. He took them to the European court because teams were able to hold your registration for as long as they could, and would until they got money, until you paid them off, etc. So mine was before the Bossman. So eventually, I think it was 364 days, they released me from to be able to play non-contract football. So that was non-league really.
Yeah.
And then I joined Seam Red Star for a few weeks to the end of the season, signed for Bishops. And then when I did eventually sign for Sunderland, so I think Sunderland had to give them a few £1,000s to actually sign us, unless it was a couple of bags of balls, wherever it was. It was a minimum payment, but they still wanted it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds weird because, I mean, I suppose it shows where kind of Sunderland were at the time, but you kind of playing, I think it was Plains Farm, Bishop Auckland, you were playing for Sim, and you get this trial because, the scout spots you playing, and you end up playing Was it a reserve game at Roker Park against Newcastle?
So would you believe it was John Crothers as well? So John Crothers had his feet in two teams at the time, so he was still scouting for Ipswich. But obviously Terry Butcher had just took over from Sunderland with Bobby Ferguson, etc. So there was that Ipswich connection. So I went down first I went down on the one Wednesday down to Ipswich, and then we played Charlton, reserve team, and we won 1-0, and I scored probably one of the best goals I've ever scored, and I had a great game, played up front with Paul Goddard. So that was, and then after the game, the whole staff was just saying, we want to sign you. He said, we just want to, obviously John Lyle was the manager, and John Lyle just said, we'd like you to come back and speak to John. And I said, thanks very much, I really like it, but I've been invited to play for Sunderland against Newcastle at Roker Park next Wednesday, and I want to play in it. And I said, if never happens, I'll come back. So they just said, that's okay, but yeah, then the history books up. I think I scored within a few minutes, and then unfortunately twisted my ankle. I came off at half time, but Terry Butcher came down and just said, we'd like to sign you. And I just said yes straight away. Didn't ask how much, didn't ask. I just said yes.
Yeah. Well, you obviously knew him from the Ipswich days, but
I did.
I mean, did you did he realise it was you from the Ipswich days?
Oh, of course.
And he knew what to expect from you.
Yeah. So, and I think that was, again, Bobby Ferguson was my manager down there, and I was so close to the first team until I broke my ankle. I was going to play the next game. I mean, he did actually tell us I would be playing against Bradford, and I'd had a reserve game against Watford and broke my ankle. And if I'm allowed to swear, he just called us a fucking bastard or something. Something really bad. But, the bedside manner wasn't great, but that's what he said. And so I think they knew what they were going to get, and I think I just had to prove that I could do it at a reserve level, and then from then on, that was it really.
Yeah, well, that's it. But I mean, you signed not long after he took over. I mean, he took over February '93, and actually, his first game we missed 2 penalties and lost one. But actually, to be fair, I mean, other than the money, of course, you must have felt like you'd won the lottery coming into a Sunderland player, like any fan would. But once you got on the inside, how did you find the club?
All over the place. I was quite surprised and disappointed, and especially with Terry as well. So, but for me, was a man mountain. Obviously, he was my captain at Ipswich. He just ran the place. He was just such a leader. But as a manager, he wasn't. And the senior players, I think, very quickly lost. He obviously transitioned from player and being respected to manager and not being respected. And some of the senior pros, you could tell there just was an us and them rather than us together. And I found that really difficult as a fan, just really come off the terraces, a couple of weeks before then, and just to see the mayhem really, and there was just no connect. It was just so hard. Training was difficult. Training wasn't fun.
Yeah. Because we talked to John Ficklin, who came in a couple of years later, and he said he'd always been on the outside as a fan. And then once he got involved as a director, he actually said he couldn't believe it. He said he thought this great institution of this football club, and he said he came in and it was run like a social club. Right. And he said it was just all over the shop, and he said he was shocked by it.
Yeah. It was, again, I suppose, because of the position that we're in, everything was difficult. And I think Terry, again, and I've spoken to Terry many times afterwards at Ipswich at different events and so forth. And it's one of his regrets. He does. He just regrets how it went. At Sunderland, he's got loads of passion, but he just regrets that he just didn't get it right. And that, if it's not right on the pitch, nothing works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he actually won 2 out of the first 3 games, and then he won 2 out of 15 until it gets to your debut. And we were in trouble with 3 games to go. And then Jim Smith's Portsmouth come to town, and they're actually chasing the runners-up spot behind the Mags with West Ham. And it's a bit of a coupon buster because they're flying, but they get 2 players sent off, and we win 4-1. And you come on in the last minute for Sean Cunnington. I mean, obviously it must have helped because we're 4-1 up.
Yeah.
But I imagine that debut coming on at Roker Park is up there with one of the proudest moments of your career.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I can't even remember the game really. Hardly any of it. I think it's a blur. But all I remember was at the final whistle, and I couldn't come off the pitch. I kept waving to the, like that. Thanks very much. Like accepting all the accolade. Like I'd been really involved in the game and I'd been off for about 90 seconds. But it's one of them that it might never happen again. I mean, literally, it might never happen again. So I was just going to really make I think they turned the lights off when I was still out there.
But that pretty much kept us up, really, when you think, because we lost the next two.
Yeah, I know about that, because the Notts County game was horrendous again. It was hell on in the dressing room afterwards. I mean, I remember after the game and Kevin Barr was getting carried off the pitch by fans up aloft and stuff, and we'd been beat 3-0 just because we survived. Gone the change room, everybody was furious. Yeah.
There was a famous picture with Terry Butcher coming off the pitch, and all the fans are mobbing him, but he's just staring down. Yeah. He looks like he's fuming, even though it's been confirmed we've stayed up.
Well, and that's what happened. He just sat and he said nothing at the end of and all of a sudden the senior pros are going, "You're going to see something," it's going to, and it just transcended into again another mess, and unfortunately, he was still there. It just gone, and I think there was no way back for him really, unless he made some unbelievable changes to the pre-season. But it was worse. We come in a pre-season, and I think we had 41 players. So that's your senior staff, your reserve staff, and your young uns. After about 10 days of pre-season, I think there was only around about 14 players left. He ran their legs off us. We were at the Silkswood ski view, up and down the ski slope, literally killing us. And that doesn't breed any. And then he took us away to Stirling. And again, after that, it was just more intense training. Brutal training, but there's no social at all. Into your rooms, and everybody was hiding and disappearing and going to the pubs. It was bad. Like it was bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even on the social side, because he started off the summer by putting a bunch of players on the transfer list. And especially like long-serving ones. There was Gary Howers, Gordon Armstrong, Peter Davenport, Anthony Smith, Ian Sampson, I think was one of them. And he was, in terms of Sunderland terms at that time, he was given a boatload of money to spend. And then he brought in Alec Chamberlain, Derek Ferguson, Andy Melville, Phil Gray, and Ian Rodgerson.
Yeah, and then they had the car crash.
Yeah, well, but he couldn't shift those players on his transfer list, but he was bringing these players in. So did that just make everything worse?
Well, his biggest and worst decision for me was he ostracised Gary Howers and Gordon Armstrong. Virtually told them they're gone. Okay, they were devastated. Obviously, they loved Sunderland, played many, many games for Sunderland, but they couldn't get rid of them, so they end up still playing.
Yeah.
They were playing obviously for the bad, but again, there's that. Yeah, you can never give your 100% if you don't like the manager. So you can, you're trying hard, but if it's not going well, the resentment again, and that was bad blood with training as well. So they were training, and it was just so bad. It was just so bad. And then we had the lads who had just signed. Obviously, Derek Ferguson went round the wrong way and a roundabout and injured all the players. And then you get that. It's just, it just wasn't going to work. It's just never going to work.
Well, that's it. We had that, as you said, that car crash with all the new signings. I think it was all the new signings except one of them. I can't remember which one wasn't in there. Maybe Alec Chamberlain, yeah. And then you start on the opening day and it's 3-0 at half-time at the baseball ground against Derby, and you're replaced by Lee Power at half-time.
Yeah.
Derek Ferguson's already come off Brian Atkinson after 20 minutes because I think he was still feeling what happened in the car crash. I mean, was that just a sign of how things were going?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd played against Rangers and Gary Bennett's testimonial. And scored our goal and played really, really well. And I was looking forward, but I think for me, the build up to the match and no one was playing against Derby. And then the anxiety really got me. It was the thought I was getting telegrams, from Australia, from family and stuff. And and the whole thing about playing for Sunderland in a league game, just at that time on that day, just got too much for me. I was virtually hyperventilating in the game. And before I even got my second win, we were 3-0 down. And then that was it. And I think the gaffer knew it was a little bit too much. I just the occasion really, really got to me.
Yeah, I remember it was red hot that day at the baseball ground. And Actually, that Rangers game, I remember it because my mum was absolutely fuming and didn't want us to go to that game. I always remember that when I was young, because it was
just driving around bodies. I mean, literally, there was people in the street lying down. I mean, they are a different breed up there.
I was only about 10 or 11 at the time, but that was an experience. But it was interesting because we had those 2 games against Leeds, and we were almost thinking, but we've got a good side here. When you saw them play like that.
Yeah, there were some good players. I mean, we had some good players, but again, even going back now to what we've just done last season is it's how you managed and how you knit together and that core. And we'll probably hit on where we were with Peter Reid. He just triggered us. The same sort of players, same players, but different outcome.
Yeah, and I was there for that first goal against Birmingham, because you get a bit of a run after those Leeds game, and then that goal against Birmingham at Roker Park. And I genuinely, I've got the image in my mind in the echo, in the sports echo of you celebrating with your one arm up, with your finger up, reeling away towards I think it was towards the Clockstown Roker end.
Yeah, I knew where the Duff lads would be, so I went over there. And then Martin Gray jumped on the top of us, and that was the thing after that. I always used to just put one and just eventually stand, and then everybody used to jump on us. I used to be carrying about 3 players, but just what happened. But
it wasn't a bad one, was it?
No, it was just a little bit of a step over, cut on side on my left foot and bent it in, so I was right on my swinger, but the joy. But again, you kind of come down from that. I think it took us 2 days just to really just come off. Just couldn't believe that I'd actually scored, and that's it. That's in the history books.
Well, even though you had John Kay trying to take the limelight that day, wasn't it?
Yeah, I put with John. It was John. It was the assist. John passed the ball. Casey.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that was his last game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Never came back from that. But yeah, I mean, look, Butcher lasts till the November. The writing's on the wall, as we've said. But it's interesting because Mick Buxton had been given the reserve team manager that summer, and then he was promoted. And then on the same day, the club was put up for sale as he kind of sacked Butcher. I mean, and then you had the red card protests and all this. It must, as a fan as well, you must have just thought, well, it's all over the place. And some of those players who obviously weren't Sunderland fans were probably thinking, how do I get out of this?
Yeah. And that's the thing. And that's what you understand. Again, for me, it didn't matter what happened. I'm a Sunderland fan. I'm a Sunderland player. And that really, I felt it for the fan. And it was just, I knew it was carnage. But some of the players there are just there just to pick up the money. They're not Sunderland fans. They've got, for them, they just wanted to hide and get out of it as best they could. But until somebody buys them, and I think that's what it was at the time. It was just, and Mick didn't help because Mick was dour. I mean, Mick was the most dour bloke you'd ever meet. His training sessions literally, you would fall asleep in his training sessions if it didn't hail so much at times in the winter in Whitburn. But it was. I think the Mick Buxton era was probably my worst time ever in football, ever, and that's when I was injured and I wasn't playing. It's horrendous.
Yeah. I mean, but we spoke to a couple of players, and they've actually said, even though he couldn't hold a room, they said actually on the tactic side, he said actually he seemed a bit ahead of the game in that sense.
Well, have you seen? I've seen the results: 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-0, 0-0.
I'll tell you what, that was a little bit of an improvement back then.
We couldn't create it. We never attacked.
Yeah. I mean, but you I think you started 8 games and kind of 12 from the bench. And were you a bit disappointed that you weren't playing a bit more?
Yeah, but I had Don and I had Phil Gray, and then obviously the rise of Craig Russell. So there was a lot of competition there, and I did one job really. Literally, I was just a big target man who knocked a few people about, and sometimes it was just different. And at times, I believe my form wasn't great, and I wasn't really scoring that. I would go and come in and score 1 or 2, and then miss a couple of games, and then they would just change it because Craig was there, and I think that's what it is. Craig had extra pace, so it was all that. You just got to just work with it. I was disappointed. I would love to have played 300-400 games for Sunderland, but it was never going to be the case for me.
Well, I mean, you talk about that competition, and then Don Goodman was sold to Wolves, and there was a bit of a gap in there, but we eventually replaced him with Brett Angel on transfer deadline day. And I think it was the investment from John Ficklin. I think it seemed like the board went out and signed him.
Yeah.
And Mick Buxton didn't know much about it, but we're in trouble with 7 games left, and it was Angel's debut and Dominic Matteo who came in on loan.
Yes,
we were almost docked for points because we didn't get his for his paperwork.
Typical Sunderland, yeah.
Well, I mean, it was that. I mean, we were in a really dark place, and bizarrely, out of the blue, Peter Reid's appointed because Bob Murray hadn't really done this for. It was Dennis Smith, the last one for. It wasn't appointed from inside the club.
Yeah.
But could you just feel a lift because it was just this new voice, new kind of personality around the place?
That's what it was. Peter's got a bit of an aura about him. He just Jeffson just comes in and he's right scouser, you know what I mean? And he just he came in across as like he's one of the lads. Yeah, but he had steel in him, you know what I mean? And you could see it, and he just got in the lads' heads in terms of straight away. He just transformed training. Training become fun. It was all 5-a-side. It was all a bit of head tennis. It was a bit like, come on, lads, he would join in. And all of a sudden it became enjoyable to go to training. And just that enjoyment just changed the whole concept of, we believed again because we were having fun and we're enjoying each other's company. And I think, and that's what he did. He just injected a bit of fun into the game.
Yeah. It is amazing because when you look at that summer, he only really brought in Paul Bracewell because obviously he's as player assistant manager.
Yes. Yeah.
And John Mullen really was the only 2 signings he made that summer. And of course, one of the biggest people he brought in was Bobby Saxton, of course. But if you look at the likes of yourself, Richard Ord, Andy Melville, Martin Scott, I mean, the whole host of players just became better players in a Sunderland shirt.
That was really because of Peter, and we just started to enjoy turning up for training. We would turn up early because it would be a head tennis competition. We would then have 5-a-sides, and the 5-a-sides, you can imagine, with Scotty and Barley, and they were ferocious. I mean, literally ferocious. I mean, there was no holds barred, and it was played at an intensity, and we just couldn't wait to the next game. And I think that's why, like I just said to you before, there's virtually the same players, but our mentalities changed just because training's better, and we just love being there, and because we were doing okay. The social side got of it. We were having a few drinks together. We're just enjoying each other's company, and I think that we just got a connection.
Yeah, and I mean, you're involved from the off pretty much in that season, right from the beginning. I mean, during that pre-season, did you get the feeling he liked the look of you?
I think it was Bobby. I know I had a couple of arms around me from Peter, but they just didn't fancy Brett, and. Again, so I was the next, and Bobby liked a big centre forward. And they just said, just keep fit. That was my problem, Chris. It was me keeping fit, and my knee was knackered really. But I was keep taking tablets all the time, anti-inflammatories 3 or 4 times a day for about 15, 16 years. And that was the case. I was just keep fit. And I loved playing for Peter, and as I say, and then eventually I was going backwards and forwards. I was up centre forward, centre half, and I just loved it. Just loved playing it because we were winning games, we were up and everything. The fans were enjoying it. To be a Sunderland player and a Sunderland fan, it was just terrific.
Yeah, living the dream, and it's funny because that season it was building momentum, and you're involved all the time, and. You score an important goal against Barnsley in November and then start against Palace in the next game, but then you come off. And this is a weird one when I looked at it. You're on the bench for that Millwall game when we win 6-0.
Yeah.
But we're 4-0 up in less than an hour. But there's you, John Mullen and Gordon Armstrong on the bench, and none of you get on.
Yeah. I think it's just so, again, sometimes when you're on there, they just think, we're winning so many. Just let them play. Just let them enjoy it. And that was it. And Craig scored 4, I think, didn't he? I mean, it was an incredible day for Craig. Incredible.
I bet you were chomping at the bit, were you? Sitting there watching it.
It's hard because I wanted to get on, but it's fantastic seeing us. I mean, they were top of the league.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting relegated after. I didn't think they hardly won a game, did they? After that.
Well, yeah, because it was pretty much just after that, Mick McCarthy got the Ireland job, and they just fell down the league after that. But you also played you came on off the bench in the 2 games against Man United, but it was a massive sign how much Reidy had brought us on in, it was only 6 months or something.
Yeah, I remember nearly double footing Nicky Butt at Old Trafford. he went up and over the top of us. But yeah, so that was fun. We were so close. But that game, would you believe, was the end of Alex Chamberlain.
Yeah.
We were winning 2-1 and the ball's gone to the back post and he hasn't really getting there. And I think Peter Reid virtually lost confidence in him. And that was unfortunately the end because we were so close. Was it the 88th minute or something Cantona scored?
Yeah.
Old Trafford? Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah, 80th minute. I think you came on about 5 minutes after.
All right, okay.
He
try to get the winner.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's it. Because Shea Given came straight in, didn't he? After that replay.
Yeah.
But we'd gone on a run. You know, we'd won 1 in 10 actually, including those cup games, and we went to Portsmouth 17th of February. You're at centre half at this point, and you equalised in the last minute to make it 2-2. I mean, if anyone wants, I've said this before actually on a different pod. If anyone wants to watch a proper old-fashioned corner header routine, a proper header from a corner, this is the kind of blueprint that you need to follow. Because and actually, Peter Reid quite often mentions this as one of the most important goals, doesn't he?
Well, we battered them, and I think we missed a penalty. We win them 1-0, and then, I mean, if you look back, I think their second goal, it's going through legs, people are falling over, and then they scramble it in, and you just think, how are we losing 2-1 here? They've never had a kick. And look, again, I always fancy myself, I always think, right, I'll make a run, and if the ball's in my area, I'll just attack it. And it was just one of them where, as I ran, it just was coming straight down my line, and I just thought, and I've always done it, I never tried to flick it, I never tried to do anything, I just head it. Just head it. I know roughly where it needs to go, and I just head it. And lucky enough, it just fired in, and that was it. You know, we after that, I think we were invincible after that.
I don't think there was much luck to it. There was absolutely unstoppable that header, and like you said, after that we win 10 and 11. And you know, as fans, look, we all dream of playing for Sunderland, but you know, in our wildest dreams, we dream of winning a title for Sunderland, or getting promoted, or winning a cup and something like that. And in this season, when I was looked it up, you're involved in 46 games in all competitions, including games where you're on the bench and didn't get on, but 46 games in all competitions. And, you know, Dan Neil might be feeling something similar right now, but as a Sunderland fan, playing for Sunderland, involved in, like you said, 46 games that season, can you describe how it feels to go through something like that?
It was... I think I was drunk for about 2 weeks. I'm just celebrating. I mean, literally. And people probably listening to this, I was on chaplains, I was on tables, I was singing I was chanting. Again, it was just one of them things that I thought this might never happen again. I am just going to make sure I thoroughly enjoy it, and I did until we got back for pre-season. Then it starts again, and then the excitement builds. You just think, I'm in the Premier League. I'm literally going to play in the Premier League. I was playing for Plains Farm 2.5 years ago, and now I'm in the Premier League. But again, I was excited because I wanted to see the best players. I wanted to play against the best players, and I wanted to see how good they were, and you know, get amongst them, and just see what level they are. I just wanted to compare myself against them. But it was really, really, really unbelievable times, and like the feeling now around the town, it just bubbles away with excitement. Everybody kind of wait for the season to start.
Well, I mean, unbelievable summer. Mags had blown the league. We'd won the league. Euro 96 was on. I mean, what a time to be alive that was. But I mean, just speaking of that, because you were obviously involved in the Premier League. I mean, how did you find it?
Personally, I found it okay. I went more to centre half, and I was more comfortable out. You know, my size and my presence, and that time generally. You know, they always had maybe a bigger centre forward up there, so that competitive edge to be able to just go and head it and clear it, and obviously have the desire to block shots and stuff. I just found it okay. I literally was fine. But the difference was you made half a mistake and you were punished, and that was it. You know, you maybe get away with 2 or 3 in the Championship, but in the Premier League, you make a mistake and it's generally in the back of the net. That's the difference. The quality is just so high. And I think since then, I mean, whereas 29 years ago, it's just gone up and up and up. I mean, we were still drinking 3 days a week. They don't need to do that now. I mean, literally, they are athletes
I do wonder if you're being conservative with the 3 days a week, but we'll leave that one there. But I mean, just in terms of yourself, though, personally, because obviously, look, we're talking about the Sunderland angle, but where you've come from, those injuries, and how you've had to battle your way back. I mean, to then take the field in a Premier League game, I think it was Derby away that the first game, I think, if I'm quite right.
Derby away, full debut, Arsenal at Highbury, yeah.
But you must have just thought, I've gone to the bottom, gone back to non-league, and you've made it all the way back up to the top. I mean, that must have been a moment for yourself.
Not at the time, Chris. Again, because you just get cocooned in this, you're playing for Sunderland, and that's it. It's not until afterwards, and it's, again, you brought the book up, it wasn't until like 10 years later and stuff, and I would be out and telling stories and stuff, and people were like, that's freaking amazing, you should write it down. So it took us another 10 years to write it down, but eventually got there, because for me, it was just my lived life. It didn't seem that extraordinary, but it wasn't until you tell people and they're just gone, no, that kind of that one. And I went, yeah, that's what I was. That's what happened. And I was getting subbed off for playing Farm on a really cold, horrible day. And then 2-3 weeks later, I was playing for Sunderland.
There'll have been lads in the pubs around Sunderland saying, I had him in my back pocket
there's loads.
3 weeks
ago. I have a couple ever go out and I say, yeah, I have. But I just grin.
Well, I was going to ask as well that season, because the cameras are around with Premier Passions. How was that?
That was all right. We enjoyed it. They were good lads. Again, there was times that we didn't want them there. We were just chatting about stuff, and we were going away to Manchester stuff and having like a 3-day because there was international breaks, and we're doing that, and and because we were let loose a little bit and having a few drinks, we didn't really want them there and thereabouts. But they were great. They understood the situation and just really wanted the nitty gritty of how it worked. And I think, again, when you think about that was a trailblazer for everything that's gone on now.
Yeah. Well, they did Craig Russell and Mickey Gray like a kipper, getting them into bed and interviewing them while they were in bed. Separate ones, of course, but
yeah.
But yeah, you got picked up an injury in the middle of that season, and let's blame it on that injury for our dip after Christmas, eh?
Well, we had loads. We had everybody. I mean, when I went to the treatment table, there was Quinny, there was Barley, there was Kevin Scott, there was Steve Agnew. I mean, literally, we had like 9 or 10 injured. I mean, I completely detached my ankle bone. I went to kick Brian Dean as hard as I could, and he was a bit wily and just showed us a stud, and I just literally caved my ankle in on him. Yeah. So what they did, they wired me up so I could actually play again. Yeah. And I had to, at the end of the season, get all the wires out.
Yeah. Well, I'd say you did come back for that last part of the season, and you started in Chris Waddle's debut. But and obviously Chris Waddle coming to the club, massive name. And I think it gave everyone a bit of a boost towards the end of the season. Or I think some people wanted a bigger kind of name, if you're more money spent, if you like. But I mean, just to see him on the training ground must have been something.
What he could do with the ball, and then that's the thing. That's the levels. You can see why he was playing for Moss. I mean, he just literally, it was incredible what he could do with that ball and how far the lad could kick it. I didn't think a football could go that far. I mean, literally, he could just hit it 50, 60 yards on a sixpence. He was just terrific, and he just had that style as though like he was just so easy, but you just couldn't get the ball off him. And again, he's just one of these players that he was one of the lads as well. Would be out. He just fell straight into being one of the lads at Sunderland, and we all felt, within hours, it was just Chris, it was just Waddler, but he was terrific on the pitch. You just could give him at any time, and he would just create something, and he did.
That's it. Yeah, I remember on Premier Passions, "Give it a Waddler" was the shout from the sidelines, I think. But
yeah.
And then your only derby that you played in was at St James's towards the end of that season. Mickey Gray scored the opener. And then Alan Shearer equalised with about 15 minutes to go. But you speak to a lot of Sunderland fans, and some Sunderland fans go, like, want to play in it. But then when they think about it, they think, I'm not sure I can handle it.
Yeah, it was the noise, even the home. I mean, when it was Roker Park, I wasn't playing. But the noise, you can't hear your next player who could be 5-10 yards away from you, probably less. You're literally screaming. And the ferocity of it is something that lives with us forever. Because you're in that ball. It's when you're in the stand, you may be Kennedy, but when you're in the ball, when you're on that pitch and close by, it's unreal. But it's, again, it's a message to all Sunderland fans now going into the Premier League again. We were a good side. we played well against it, even against the Mags when they were flying. We were the better side by a million miles against the Mags. We created chance after chance, and I remember Southampton and Notts Forest and loads I can mention that we should have won easy, but we couldn't score.
Yeah,
and we ended up going down. And that's the thing. That's the thing that I hope we can pull something out. You know, Mayenda has a great season. He's just becomes a real hit in the Premier League. If we don't score goals, we're going to struggle.
Yeah. Well, just going on to that final league game at Roker Park, because we talked to Craig Russell and he was absolutely gutted. He wasn't playing in that, and I think he watched it from the full end. But that must have, I mean, where was your, I mean, obviously you just had to be focused on the 3 points, because if you'd focused on everything, I imagine it would have been just difficult to play even.
Well, he had Duncan Ferguson to mark, so I was quite focused. And he actually pushed and offered, he was having a bit of argy-bargy with Darren Williams, and I offered him out. And then after about 10 seconds, I thought, what have you done? So I was telling him I'll see him in the tunnel and everything. But yeah.
Didn't say which tunnel though.
No. And again, it was one of them days I stayed out for quite a while, celebrating.
I imagine. Yeah. And it's funny actually, Duncan Ferguson was unsurprisingly booked that afternoon, but yeah, it was an incredible one. But yeah, and then obviously that Wimbledon day. I mean, would you say that day at Wimbledon probably one of the? I mean, because we stayed up. We're talking about the Notts County day being a bad day, but we stayed up. I mean, was this Wimbledon one the worst day as a Sunderland player?
Yeah, for me it was. We were just so close, and again, it was just. The worst thing, I think, how it all started, I remember just giving the ball to Paul Bracewell. We were about 2 minutes in, and he virtually just kicked it up in the air. I mean, the pitch was disgraceful, but he just kicked it up in the air, and I thought, if Brace is feeling the pressure, yeah, and it was just, and then obviously I think they scored fairly, I don't know, was it in the first half or the second half? Can't remember now, but once they scored, without really creating anything, again, it was just a really nothing of a game, but I think, again, it was Coventry and Tottenham, I think, and kicked off bloody late. And like so Mickey Gray were like, we still got a chance. I just wandered into the change room head in hands, and I just knew that we were going to go down. Yeah, it was devastating.
5 minutes to go, Jason Ewell scored. So it was up in the air if we'd getting that late goal before, because we'd last until the 85th minute to hang on, and it's typical Sunderland, giving everyone hope, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I overplayed again, talking about giving away a thing. I think we were trying to keep it in, and they had a throw, and I've tried to give it to Audie, and I think it's been pinched, and it's gone there, and it's gone across to Jason Ewell, and Mickey Gray was trying to attack, so he was up further of the pitch, and it was just one of them things where we give one thing away, just out of place, and then boom, 1-0 down. But that was even with 0-0, we still went down. So I replay that game a million. Out of all the games I've freaking played for Sunderland, it's one of the ones I replay a lot in my head.
Yeah. Well, obviously you left that summer, so we'll part that there because we're a bit pushed for time, and I want to get your thoughts on the modern day. But just quickly, in terms of, because you joined the commentary team a couple of times last season. I mean, how did you find that? Did you enjoy it?
I find it really hard because I've got to stop swearing. Because you're just a fan, and I think Danny does a fantastic job. I think he's a lot more professional than me. But again, it's just like letting a fan loose on the TV, which is fairly dangerous. But yeah, I only step in if Dan's away, and I do have a role at the club, so I'm an ambassador. I work with Jim Montgomery, and I mean that's another thing I cannot believe. I go to work with Jim Montgomery, Dick Malone, Mick Oswell. So it's just fantastic. And as main, we just all sit round and tell stories, and it's just, brilliant. And I'm looking forward to being there next season as well. Yeah, which will be, on a different level.
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of last season, because look, we'll get into, I suppose, what happened at the end. But as a season, I'm not sure many of us going back to last season on the back of coming finishing 16th, and then appointing a manager who had no experience, would have really, said, right, I'm going to put my money where your mouth is and say we're going up this season.
No way. I mean, I think if anybody said they were on stuff. I mean, Reggie Libris, nobody knew who Reggie Libris was. I mean, even the ardent super stat fan wouldn't have known anything about Reggie Libris. But I tell you what, he's just had a calming effect on the team because it's an extremely young side. But yeah, we've had spells where it didn't go quite right. But I think at the beginning where we were flying, I just think it'd give the young lads confidence, and we were always there and thereabouts. And at the time, literally, there was only 4 teams in it. Yeah. But, talking about the Premier League and we're going up and so far, that's the problem, is the 3 teams that come down are just super strong.
Yeah.
And it's hard to compete, so we were the best of the rest.
Yeah, that's it. And going back, because obviously, look, came off the back of Tony Mowbray virtually, but he seemed to let this young side loose. Yeah. Whereas Regis Labrie seemed to say, right, you're all really good players, play with free, but he gave them a structure and said, play within that.
Yeah, if you remember, but we were quite gun-ho to begin with. We were flying out and stuff, and it wasn't until the Middlesbrough game. And if you remember the start of the Middlesbrough game, Middlesbrough didn't know what to do. They were stood on the ball looking, saying, come on then, Sunderland, come at us. And we just went, do you know what, come at us. And I think, and from that game, we started to be a bit more pragmatic, which is, and hitting teams on the break and having pace. So, again, but, I've spoken to Reggie Labrie and been at event, and they just, like all good managers, it's not like this is our system, this is what we're doing. He just looks at other teams and just plays to that sort of, we knows our strengths and sees what their weaknesses is, and we try to do that. And within that, we've had the rise of Chrissy Rigg, and we had Leferian, and Dan Neil's just grown and grown and grown. And then obviously the list goes on. The young lads have just been awesome this season. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you think, that it's been a brave policy anyway, bringing young players in, but there's been times when some of these young players have dipped in form, like Dan Neil had one in his first season in the Championship. Anthony Patterson had a dip. Chris Riggs' form dipped. But the thing is, what they seemed to do as a club was say, well, okay, we expect that, but we're just going to keep putting them in. And then do you think that was ending up being a result of that the players just became stronger because of it as young players?
Yeah, there's reasons for both for me. There's, you can put a young player in and keep taking them out and put them in. But there's no, you can't give somebody experience unless they experience it. And that's the thing. So, you got Dan Neil, he's played well over 100 in league games. What is he, 22? It's incredible. It's incredible. And Chris Rigg will probably play 10,000 games if he keeps going. Where is he? He's still only 7-year-old. It's an incredible achievement. But I think the team around them, the staff have just given them the confidence to score. We understand, just keep going. You know where we want to play. You know the system we want to play. And maybe you're not playing at 100%. You dip from, but you can still sit in. You can still do the work that we want, which is, again, the pragmatic. That's sitting in holes. That's defending well. They can do that. Maybe the offensive stuff's maybe died off a little bit, but that's what they did. And then eventually they were coming off and we're bringing people on. And the changes, especially at the end of the season, God, did they work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny, my lad's 11, and I keep saying, I said, Chris Riggs scoring in the FA Cup when he was 15, so you've got some work to do. But yeah, look, going towards the end of the season, obviously we had that, which was just a big debate, which was bizarre when we'd locked in fourth place, but there was this debate against, having momentum going into the playoffs. But what happened in the playoffs? We talked to Tom White on the pod, and he was talking about sliding doors moments, and that actually with Sunderland, you go back in history, and we've talked about a few typical Sunderland moments, but those things don't normally come out on the right side for Sunderland.
No, I've been Sunderland fan all my life, and you the same, and it's normally unlucky lads. We tried, they give everything, but we just wasn't quite there. That's always been my, but. No, I was the one as well. I wanted momentum. I wanted us to go and, especially at home, the last couple of games, I just wanted us to go out and just be, go and try to batter somebody, but it wasn't. But, talking afterwards, they always seem to have a plan. They always seem to have it, we know what's going to happen. Let's everybody keep fit, and once it starts, we'll be ready. And they were. I see it online, Coventry, we battered just. No, they didn't. The first game, I thought we created more better chances than they did out of the two legs. So, please themselves, there's different ways to win football matches.
Yeah. And even at Wembley, I've seen games like that, because I remember at half time, and I was talking to my lad at half time, and because he's just so young and he hasn't experienced much of being a Sunderland fan, and I was almost preparing him because I'd thought, I've seen this so many times when we get to Wembley or when we get to a big game and we just don't turn up. And at half time, I thought, it's just going to be another one.
I had a different thought. So again, I just had a feeling we'll find a way. Having said that, I took a massive dent when the second goal went in.
Yeah.
But this doesn't happen for Sunderland. VAR appeared. VAR appeared. And once that was cancelled, I went, we're winning this. Yeah. We're winning this.
But as a Sunderland fan, even when the ref went over to the screen, I thought, he's still going to give this.
Yeah. No, I didn't. When he went to overtake the thing, then when they know that it puts the doubt in and when they look at it, he's definitely interfering. And I looked at the chance that Pato drove the wrong way, but saved on it. It actually touches the lad's hand.
Right.
So I think if it goes in, I think if people look, but I'm sure it flicks off the lad's hand. So again, I think VAR might intervene. So VAR God was with us, I think, at Wembley. But what a day. What a day.
But I mean, you haven't been involved in football for so long and played in so many games. It's interesting, the psychology of a game, because in midway through the second half, you could see the psychology. You could see the game turning.
Yes.
You could see like Sunderland players growing, and you could see Sheffield United shrinking.
But again, if you look at Reggie Libris, he just makes a few tweaks, and then he brings Patrick Roberts on, and Patrick, where he's maybe wanted to probably produce more this season in terms of assists or goals. He's just got something about him. He's just a really tricky. And that ball to Mayenda is just different class. And again, he just sits in the pockets, and he was hard. And I think, and that was the turn for me. We just tweaked it a little bit, and Sheffield United then went, well, what's going on? And I think because they had a bit of pressure, and again, that mentality is they've never won for 100 years. I'm sure when they missed that second chance, that one in the second half, I think a lot of them psychology were just went, we're not going to win this. And I think, and then just at the time where we slightly changed it, and all the momentum was us, there was only going to be one winner.
Yeah, and definitely sliding doors moment when Patrick Roberts lost the ball later on, but then it ended up to Kiefer Moore. And I think Patrick Roberts knew Kiefer Moore was going to give us an assist and not going to watch.
But if you think about it, I looked at it as well, when Parry has it, 3 players around him.
Yeah.
So when Tommy does get the ball, the centre midfield players out of position. So again, it's just them gold. Football has got a funny way of just, it's, as I say, it's a sliding door, I suppose, moment. Yeah. And I've read loads of things. If you could bottle that moment up that when that ball just rattled the side netting, side-footed in, unbelievable finish. What a finish that was from Tommy.
Yeah, that's it. And talking about what's happened since, obviously Bellingham moving on for over 30 million. I mean, I actually think, look, I think that was all written out beforehand. I think they had it all planned.
Yes.
But I do think, maybe because of the World Club Cup, but I think it's a really good thing that happened quickly and early.
Yeah. Again, going back to my early days at Sunderland, and it was just chaos and horrible. I think the club have got it together. Literally, marketing, everything that's happened from the club. I mean, that just what we do before pre-season thing, the pre-match stuff, behind the scenes, the way we recruit players and stuff. It's just a professional outfit. And I think trying to do the business, that business was going to be done, get it out there, get the money in, and then we can do, and I'm sure behind the scenes there's lots and lots of stuff going on, because it's not, and it's all data driven now. It's not, some bloke with a cigar or a cigarette sitting in a stand and saying this guy's all right. I mean, it's literally, it's proper data.
Yeah. And even going back to the Hummel stuff, did you not keep a load of tracksuits in a box or something like that?
Not Hummel. It was them days, you had to give your strip back. Otherwise you had to pay for it. I mean, literally, if I threw a strip away, Kip Man would have went nuts. So I've kept a few of the Avec ones. So I've got them, few of them framed. I've still got a couple lying around that I keep, and I will frame them eventually. But yeah, I keep them. I would never sell or do anything. They're mine to keep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously we're pushed for time, but you've done it. You've made that step up, albeit, what was it? Best part of 30 years ago now. Bloody hell. It's scary. But I mean, is it even harder now to stay up? Because last 2 seasons, 3 promoted sides come straight back down.
It's the money. It's the money. I mean, look at what Man City has already spent 112 million. Is it more? It's just astronomical, and when they can't compete, and the problem they have now, because the rules have all changed with PSR, even if you had multi-billion pound owner take us over tomorrow, couldn't spend the money. Not allowed to spend the money. It's just madness. So the gap is so far, but you cannot bridge it. So the only way you can bridge is really with a bit of luck. You get the team playing. You get the pragmatic, and you pinch. You just lucky. We need to be lucky next season.
Yeah, I mean, we had, as I said, we had Tom White on, and he said from potentially from a couple of sources that there's a fair chance we might be breaking our transfer record again this summer. But how much do you think we need to strengthen? Because we obviously, there's a balance there between you've got these young players in who want games, and you want to give them games, but you need to strengthen at the same time.
Again, I think we need a top-notch striker, but again, everybody wants a top-notch striker. That's literally...
There's not many around now, is there?
No, not really. But you've just got to, again, it's that look. So we pulled Kevin Phillips out from nowhere, and that's the sort of thing you need. You need somebody that just comes and maybe know of him. He's played, but just hits the Premier League by storm, and that's what we need. And again, if that data comes in and we get some young players to help, or some players that's maybe even gone against the grain, 25, 26, old players according to our squad, who could just help the young lads, because we're going to need a bigger squad. There's no way they can play every minute of every game in the Premier League at their age. I know the young lads, but the intensity of it, mental, and they've got to have a break. So we're going to have to manage. Especially like some Riggy and stuff. But yeah, I'm just cannot wait. Just really, really cannot wait. And I think West Ham at home. Hey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny. You think, Premier League, and then you look at the fixture list, and being a ridiculous fan, you look at the first 6 or something, and you go, God, there's a chance we might be unbeaten after 6 or something, which is ridiculous.
I didn't think that, but I just think it could have been much worse.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, but then you look at December and you think, where's the points?
I might go on holiday.
Yeah. but yeah, just in terms of next season, you said you're kind of working with the club. I mean, you've already mentioned all that still continuing?
I mean, again, talking about how well and structured it is behind the scenes. There's a couple of new bars opening and stuff like that. So the behind the scenes, it's just phenomenal. The way it's run, and the hospitality side's done really, really well. So we've got the new bridge, and they've got the sheep. It's just a lovely place to go. And again, you just think, I just cannot wait to that first game of the season where we just flop, and it's the Premier League, and it is jammed.
Yeah, it was announced all the season tickets were sold out as well.
That's a given to me. That's a given. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I go away for a few games, and it's a sellout. You just know everybody says it, but I think we are definitely because we've gone through this shit through the years. We are definitely the best fans in the world.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect place to end it on, and we're pushed for time because you still were talking about it. But you're still getting that knee sorted, Lee.
Well, I've got 2 knee replacements because the other one knocked in as well. But the second one is I'm having a bit of jip, so I've got to go and see the specialist to get that one fixed. Yeah. I've had about 8 operations since I finished.
The pain a Sunderland fan will go to play for the lads.
I'm sure everybody will. I mean, I used to go in the pubs and stuff, and they go, "What's it like playing for Sunderland?" And when you're a Sunderland fan, and I went, "Well, just exactly the same as you would think. Your arm would come. It doesn't matter. It's just like fucking amazing."
Should just say now, your first response should just be bloody painful, basically.
Oh no, yeah. You want to kind of get out of bed.
But yeah, we really appreciate your time, Lee, and hopefully during the Premier League season, you join us every now and again and have a
problem. Not a problem.
Good stuff, brilliant stuff. All the best for the summer, and we'll catch up just before maybe.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Nice one, and thanks again for everyone for listening. Of course, we'll have all everything covered Sunderland-wise on the Roker Report website, and pretty much daily releases on How We're the Podcast. But from us, bye for now.
This podcast podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.